All right, welcome to the BrainDrive Monday development call. Here at BrainDrive, our mission is to make it easy to build, control, and benefit from your own AI system. I'm Dave Waring, and I handle the operations side here.
And I'm Dave Jones. I'm the developer and handle the tech stack side.
Awesome. So we do these dev calls every Monday at 10 a.m. to provide an update to anyone who's curious or helping us drive BrainDrive's mission forward. If you're not familiar with BrainDrive, you can find a short description of the service that we offer in the description section of this video. And we have an agenda that I'll bring up, and we'll jump into the call. So our primary goals for this call are to give a progress update on any agenda items that we've had from last week and to create the agenda for the coming week. And if there's any time left over, we like to choose a big picture topic that we can dive into. So we always like to celebrate the wins along the way. So we start with celebrations. And for me, the plugin sneak peek that Dave gave me on Friday, which he's going to be showing you in this call, was a big win. It's something we've been talking about for a long time and really is one of the primary differentiators for BrainDrive and brings to life that build part of our mission statement. So that was exciting to see that come in the world last week. Anything from your side from the
Uh,
celebrations, Dave?
on top of that, the installer, because it's like we've been talking about it since day one when we had this idea to do this project, and it was like been talking. It's like, okay, installer. It's like a marketplace. Be able to build a plugin somewhere else and then push it into the system, and to see that come alive. And it almost worked as smooth as in my mind it would work, which that's saying a lot because we were always using WordPress or something like that to equate this to. And so finally, do you throw in a link, you press go, and you get some coffee, you come back and you have the plugin ready, and it's right there where it should be. And seeing that, like you said, come alive. For me as a developer, that was like, hey, a baby was born.
Amazing. Awesome. Celebrations. Good. So, challenges from last week. Brain Drive Concierge is moving a little slower than I would like. I think the lesson learned here is I need to do a little better job of establishing timeline for deliverables, which we'll do in the future. And we'll get back on top of that this week. From your side, any challenges, Dave?
Um, uh, Anticipating the marketplace because we, like the installer, we have such a vision for how that wants to work, and also the ability for other people to create their own marketplaces, and so to anticipate what's going to be necessary for that to take place. Um, that's mental puzzle going on in my head. It's like every time I step up, walk away, it's like, oh, don't forget this. Don't for make sure you're aware of this type of stuff. So that's the big challenge right now. And then the normal coding of the due diligence, the installer works. I'm up to M now in making sure that the delete works purpose. And then next, after today, we'll get on the update so that you can have a plugin, somebody can update it, and then you can get it just as seamlessly.
Amazing. Sounds great. All right. So update on agenda items. The first one on the list is V.O.3 items from the roadmap. I'll just bring that up real quick. I think I have the roadmap. Yep. Let me just share again real quick. And I'll include a link to the roadmap in the description section of the video as well. So this is the roadmap we've been
Yep.
working off of. So V.1 was developer access, and V.2 was self-updating system, and V.3 is the plugin manager operational, and we're running towards V1, which will be a fully functioning system for our Katie Carter persona
Yep.
that we call her, which is someone that's non-technical and wants to use and own their own AI system to produce and market their content.
Yep.
So that's a brief update there on the roadmap. And you want to talk about what was accomplished this week towards V.3?
Sure. I will go ahead and share my screen real quick. There we go. Now this is what BrainDrive looks like when you log in. Well, you actually come to AI chat. I just went to this one. As I said, I'm up to M. I'm going through the alphabet really quick. I'll have to I'll have to kill my database soon and just start all over, or just use 3 characters or 4 characters. Uh, but the plugin, let me grab my directory. Now, I do envision to be able to do bundles when we get to the installer, but for right now, we are working on just a single plugin when somebody's installing. I have them on my personal GitHub right now, just so I can simulate a developer who's
Yeah,
not
and
affiliated
before
with
this week,
BrainDrive.
you had to go to the GitHub and do like an install in the command line interface, etc. So this is like a big step forward because
Yep.
now you can actually, from within BrainDrive, do that install, correct?
Yeah. Yes, we get out of the you have to type in a command to you just stay on the interface, and that's for Katie Carter. This is a requirement that is essential. It's
Yep.
like for technical people like me, when somebody says do a terminal, it's like, okay, I know what to do. When you're dealing with a Katie Carter type personality, you say terminal, and the first question I'm like, what's that?
Right.
It's like, hey, so the application has to be for Katie in all aspects, not just only when you're doing an AI conversation.
Yep. Yep.
So from here, we just simply press and it starts going through the process. Now, I might change how things are ordered so that it all happens on a single screen rather than me have to scroll down. But for the moment, especially for Dave to see this, I like to give him all the information he can look at, and then he can tell me for marketing and for a non-technical user, this is what persons needs to see or not need to see.
Right.
And that's all it takes for the plugin to be installed. There was no magic. It went up to GitHub. It grabbed it. I can go to the plugin manager, and I can see it's here now. And
Awesome.
to go one step a little further now, I'm going to change this button, what it looks like. But for my own purposes, now I can go ahead and tell it to delete the plugin, and it's that quickly done. It is off the system. All the data is gone from the back end that was related to it. It cleans itself up and moves forward.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the look of that button. It definitely like the red is like,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
hit this
and
unless you want to delete.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't know if I like it yet or not. Is one of those things. It's like, okay, you're good for now, and then when I start putting things when it's working and I'm using it all the time, by that point, after the 50th click, I'm going, what about this idea?
Right. Right. Great. So that's a big leap forward for us and really moves us. I mean, I would say that in combination with the AI chat page are sort of the two things that now,
Yep.
we just need to kind of work on polishing up and we're going to be in
Yeah.
really good
Next will
shape.
be we'll get the update working, so that you can update a plugin. We will get like the current plugin systems that we have it built within. We're going to pull them out so that we can start working on just plugins at some point and not affect the core at all. And so that way, when we have an AI chat update, which we will because we have a lot of little things to fix there, it's not a complete install of the system. It's not a terminal. It's simply, hey, you have an update for AI chat history. You press update, it handles the rest for you, and it just takes seconds versus, oh, what's that link again, or anything like
Uh,
that.
Right. Or opening up the command line and
Yep.
trying to figure out if you have all the different packages that you need.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course this week is I'm going to at least mentally come up with some type of plan for the marketplace, how
Well,
that's going to
before we
look.
get into this
Yep.
week,
Yep.
let's finish going through last week.
Yep.
Anything else you want to talk about in terms of progress on uh, the V.3 items, V.O.3 items from the
Let me
roadmap?
check what we were looking on the roadmap. Need to find that. There we go. Vito 3. Let's see. Disable doesn't quite work all the way yet, but I'm work in progress. Update. So I only have two of those done. No CLI examples. So we're on target for where we want to be. But that's about all that's done at this point in time.
Right, and you said 2 weeks last
Yeah,
week.
yeah, exactly.
So install, enable, disable, and remove plugins. We saw that. So that's done, right?
Yeah, disable is the only thing not completely. I know where it's not disabling. It
Yep.
kind of I can cheat in my mind on that one, so it's not completely there. But the install and remove are completely functional at this time.
Great. And then plugin metadata and update system, is that for next week
Yeah,
or
that's
this coming week rather?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this coming. That is in place already. It's all there. all I'm doing is the code around it to make sure it's working. So, because like I said, it can track where the plugin exists. It knows it's where, it knows it's a GitHub plugin, those kind of things. It's all, and as you can see, when it was here populating this info, or I'm not even showing my screen now. Am I? Yes, I am.
You're
Yeah,
still showing
yeah,
the plugin page,
yeah.
plugin
Where
manager page.
yeah, this is the metadata, so it's all there as it should be, and it exists off the server now.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then
Plugin
no
examples. Oh,
CLI required for plugin management.
that's done.
Okay, so we can check that off. Okay, great.
Yep.
And then plugin examples available to fork and build from.
Yep, that we're in progress on that. I have one on my personal, but I need to get the all the plugins you see here off on its own repo, and that way people can take a look and also build the once I'm finished with ironed out the update, I will then know exactly what any developer needs for documentation on building plugins, and then I can build it for what they build the documentation based on what they see for real.
Awesome. All right, great. So from my side, let me get back to the BrainDrive concierge functioning at a basic level. We should be confident in giving it out at this point. Unfortunately, we haven't made. You want to stop sharing there, Dave?
Okay, yep.
Unfortunately, we haven't made any progress since the last call on BrainDrive Concierge. I think I need to just do a better job of defining timelines for people.
Hmm.
And also, this is one of the challenges of working with the community and contractors, et
Yep,
cetera, that we're going to have to work through in terms of, this is not outside of Dave and myself, people's full-time jobs. And we're
yep.
working out how to get people involved and stay on timelines, et cetera. But that's all part of the process, and we'll improve on that as we go along. And then local brain drive memory with simple Neo4j setup. Next time I'll bring a demo to the call because I do think it's great to see it like Dave just showed us, but we do have that. And Beck, who's the developer that's working on that for us, says he has it working with an 8 billion parameter model. And the update there is basically he can get it working with the 8 billion parameter model, but he has to send more messages. And
Hmm.
I like to equate this to when we're using one of the state of the art models like GPT-4.1, which is what we're using for the cloud hosted version of this. It's like you have like someone really experienced and you
Yeah,
just need to tell them like, this is my goal, go do it.
yeah.
Where when you're working with the 8 billion parameter model, it's kind of like you have a smart intern and you have to like outline every specific step of what you
Yep,
want them to do. So the good news is that works
yep,
with the memory, with BrainDrive memory. The bad news is it adds a significant amount of latency. So we're kind of working through that right
yep.
now. Make
Yeah, and I would
sense?
expect that drop. Yeah, especially drop into an 8B model. I mean, that's a pretty hefty drop just in terms of hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, what's required to do it like that. So it's as expected, I would think.
Yeah, and I think, we're a little bit kind of caught between two worlds right now because we want to be local first with
Yep,
everything. And we do believe that the market is progressing towards these local models being able to operate in a year or so on the level that the state of the art operates on now today.
yep,
And that's what we've kind of seen over the last year. Like the AB models of today are as good as, the GPT, OpenAI models of a year or two ago.
yep. 3.5 especially.
Yeah. So we expect that trend to continue. And so we want to give people the option to move locally always
Hmm.
because that's our whole thing, right? Is
Yeah.
own your AI system. But also we want to recognize when the local is, and be
Mhm.
transparent about the performance degradation that you're going to get, hoping that and betting that
Yeah,
really that improvement is going to continue as it has in the past, and that the local stuff is just going to keep getting better and better.
yeah.
But we also want to give people the freedom to choose if they want to use a state of the art model with their system in the meantime to be able to do that. So that's kind of how we're balancing all that.
And I think an important note on that is right now the test, especially local, right now it's an 8B model. One of the next tests, especially like when I install this and like that, is I can go to up to a 32, a 70, and how much of a change there is when we do that because I You see on local llama, there's a lot of people running these larger models. How does that change the equation? And of course, and then the part you realize you spoke about, it's like, what was it? The new DeepSeek. They just came out with a new model. They distilled it down to 8B. How proficient is that? Because that is supposed to be leaps ahead. So I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but I just go by what I read, and it's like that should be a nice little model to test with as well.
Cool. And then I also worked on a little bit of the launch content for BrainDrive. We talked about a little while back having like sort of a 5 or 6 lesson course that's
Yep.
going to talk about why you want to own your own AI system and then walk people through the setup process of everything. And we're waiting until we have a version that, we're pretty comfortable with is not going to change dramatically, at least
Yeah.
initially. That will include video of within that, but there's other pieces of that content that I don't actually need the system for that I've started to work on that. So a little progress outside of the to-do list from my side last week. All right, great. So what's on so it seems like for this week, um, this is the second week, as you said it would be
Yep.
last week, of the V.O.3 from your side, right? So basically the same
Yep.
items that oh, just got signed out for some reason. The same items that we, um, were working on last week and making progress on, carrying those across the finish line.
Yep, and documentation, because this is the perfect time. It's while this whole system is fresh, what a developer needs for building a plugin is the best time to hammer all that out.
Okay, and are we feeling good still about end of this week for next
Oh
week's
yes,
call?
oh yes, everything's going. I wouldn't be surprised. It's like I said, functionality wise, I'm aiming right on where I want to be.
Awesome. And that's going to be exciting because that's really when we can start to get other developers
Yep.
involved in building plugins on top of this and start getting feedback on that like we did for the install process.
Yep, because that's going to allow us to take this at a level where we've been talking about, and the fact that we'll have the core sitting on one side, we have the plugin sitting on the other side, and it doesn't matter who's on what side. If they communicate, they have their method of communication, and if you want to write a plugin at that point, go at it.
Cool. Awesome. All right. And then I think from my side, I want to think a little bit more about and get something together on the eval idea that we have, which we're going to talk about next.
Yep.
Eval, overview, and action plan once we have BrainDrive ready. All right. So anything else before we jump into the big picture eval stuff?
No, no, I have everything's coding for me, so
Great. Do you want to talk about, so basically, I started spending a little bit more time in the local llama Reddit
yep,
forum and noticed that, one of the main questions there over and over again is what's the best model for XYZ,
yep.
right? And so I talked with Dave a little bit about that and remembered that he had come up with an idea. That was like when we first, that was I
Yes,
mean,
no,
it
this
seems
yeah,
like
this was
years now, but
that was like October, November type thing. It was like we
right.
were talking about this kind of stuff, and it was like because I was on local llama that entire time already, and it was like you always see it's like almost a weekly question. It's like, what's the best model for X? And fill in the blank on X. It could be 8B. I have 12 gigabytes of RAM. It could be I want to accomplish XYZ. They're there. They're always there. And it's like there is no definitive answer because new models come through every week, every 2 weeks. Um, and there's nobody or nothing that sits there to include all the benchmark studies that everybody sees that answer those questions. If I have
Yeah,
an
and I mean,
eight,
I find, what a lot of times I'll default to chat. Even when I was running Open Web UI and running it locally, I would just default to ChatGPT's model or OpenAI's models within my local system because I just had no, where do I
yep,
go for this particular task? But would have loved to just been able to run a local model, especially if that model was tuned to that task and may, for that particular task, be even better than what you
yep,
can get from the state of the art models.
yeah. And Hugging Face, I couldn't even tell you how many millions of models they must have sitting up there. And people are fine tuned. It's like there's a fine tuned 32B model for React development, which
Right.
my goal is for BrainDrive to be able to have that running to give people the prompts, the context necessary just to throw at it and say, hey, create a plugin that does this. And
Mhm.
for it to just go, da, 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 there's the answer. You know,
Right.
it's like as simple as that without ever going off your computer, because at 32B and the way as small as a React plugin is, you should be able to accomplish that one.
Right. Excuse me. And
Yep.
sorry about a little sick this week.
Yep.
All right. So, I think one of the things we also talk a lot about is shiny object syndrome
Yep.
because this is so new and there's so much happening. I think a mistake a lot of teams make is jumping, between trying to do way too many things at the same time. But, I think this one, the reason why we should strongly consider putting something together with two reasons is one, it really builds on our mission
Yep.
of helping you build control and benefit from your own AI system if you can choose quickly and efficiently the best model for your task that also works locally.
Yep.
Um, and can really very quickly understand the trade-offs between these things, which for our Katie Carter persona is a big deal.
Yes.
Um, really, for anyone is a big deal, but especially for non-technical users. So that's number one. Number two is, we think showing off our evaluation process, like Dave was saying,
Yep.
we built a plugin for this. Here it
Yep.
is. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone there in that it should give a lot of publicity for BrainDrive, the
Uh,
system.
yeah, and especially like staying away from the way the current systems are designed to do benchmarks. It is so structured that it's like you can see that when they train these models now, they train to do as well as humanly possible on the benchmarks, and they have nothing to do with practical application. As
Right.
everybody knows about, when you have this benchmark that sits there, it's like high school. Oh, you got an A in high school, but can you put gas in your car? And you find out that they're just so far apart that it's
Right.
ridiculous. It's like, what are they teaching in high school? Well, the same thing with models. What are they
Right.
teaching these models? Well, they're teaching them to pass the benchmark, not to have a conversation that goes on 32 responses.
That's a great analogy.
So it's
Um,
like that's why I think a plug, and because we deal with the plugin system, there's nothing stopping us from creating a plugin that, hey, for an 8B model, or we'll go from 1B to 8B, here's a plugin, and it would allow you, just like it allows us, to quickly go through these steps of, they're going to throw prompts at it, they're going to get responses back. You can see it all in live. And but most of all, at the end, it will tell you the good points and the bad points of this model.
yeah, and I guess my first question with stuff like this is always we haven't seen anything like this,
Nope.
out there, right? And I think judging by all the questions, in the main forum where people talk about these things, if something exists, people certainly don't know about it.
Yeah, and
So
I haven't seen anybody really hit it. I mean, they all go from the scientific standpoint. Like I said, it's like they're great at telling you who gets an A in high school. But as far as for practical application, I don't think I know of anything that really hits. I always have to download the model myself and hit it with a context of several responses and see if it can start picking up what we were talking about 10 responses ago, and things of those kind of natures. Or if I give it instructions, I'm going to give you this information, and I want you to build a JSON format and make sure you have these elements. And can you give me the response back every time? Those, because that's what people need at the end of the day.
right.
It's like, but it doesn't exist out there. So that's where the plugin system kind of, we can speed up the process. We don't have to do it by hand. And we can ensure that when you test model A against model B, the test is equal, and you get to,
Right.
and
And so what you would be envisioning there is a BrainDrive plugin that, for example, is designed to do a coding task,
yep.
right? And then you can just switch between the models and see how well it does on the coding task,
Yeah,
basically.
and exactly, and if for whatever reason somebody starts learning our system, we can easily adapt without changing our entire system, because that's nothing more than a plugin. or
Right.
if somebody wanted to contribute a new, and that way we could have several different schemes. It's like, which one do you want to test it against, and things like that. We can really figure out what is the best for this instance. What's the best model to use?
Okay. And so I guess what is your thoughts on why this doesn't exist already?
Uh, Two reasons. One, it's like it's easy to sit there and say, "Hey, what's the best model?" But you can tell by the answers that they get, nobody really knows. They usually, there's a lot of articles supporting this theory, is everybody does like you did. It's like you go for ChatGPT. You hit it with such a huge, it's like you go the nuclear response. There's a bug in
Yeah.
that field, so we're going to blow the field up, and that way I know I got the bug. When in truth, you just needed this little model that if you knew about, would have been perfect for what you wanted to do. And that's the thing. It's like that is, ooh, it's almost a science and an art at the same time.
Right. And
Of
I think, it's a hard problem because there's so many different
Yep,
models and they're constantly coming out all the time. But I also think a lot of people that operate in this space, they have trouble sitting in that art area, right?
yep,
And if it's not like a 100% mathematically provable answer,
hmm
then it's not good. And I would, as a non, technical person, sure, I'd prefer to have the mathematically
yep,
provable answer if there is one. But if there's not, I would rather have something than nothing.
yep. And then it comes down to platform.
Yeah.
It takes a platform to develop this.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's a lot of expended energy, which a lot of people do not deem worth it, apparently, because
Right.
it doesn't exist. You can tell it is important in the aspect of YouTube, because you can see when there's a big name model hit, every AI YouTuber is all of a sudden screaming, DeepSeek is the end of ChatGTP, and
Right.
the sky's falling or the sky's raising. It depends on whatever model it is. So it's there. What they don't talk about are the little gems that sit out there. It's like eh, they're there. They exist. Everybody's fine tuning these days. They're building data sets. We did for BrainDrive Concierge. We have a data set based on all our documentation as it stood in this moment. We're going to fine tune a model so it answers those questions. And that's just an example of what's taking place all across this entire space.
Right. Okay. So I think doing a little bit of keyword research on my side
Mm,
to see what people are searching for,
yep.
um, in terms of local models and use cases
Yep.
and AI use cases for those models. Because I think if we can start with kind of the most popular use cases and, you know, s-
Grow.
yeah, I mean, constraining this initially because it's
Yep.
just such a big, universe, to just the most popular and build that system
Yep.
around that. Okay. So what what would be the let's just start with, well, so I think number one is, will this model run on my computer or not?
Yep, that would be the first way. That's why it's like you have to lock it down by size and how much VRAM. And the VRAM's even out of the equation now because of the fact that you have the Halo processors, you have Mac with their M processors, so VRAM's not the only way to approach this, but definitely by size of the model. It's like you go with an 8B, suggested hardware to run it for how many tokens per second. The recommended, if you are trying to have a live in the moment conversation, is generally about 15 to 20 tokens per second. You can have an in the moment conversation with that model, especially if it's streaming. And from there, it comes down to a few things for me. It's like, one, if you're having a conversation, not just a blanket, here's one question, here's one response. If you can continue that line of thought for 10 times, does it remember the conversation that you've had, how well it remembers the conversation? You can hit it with a few facts type thing. And then 20 questions, how deep? Because most models, doesn't matter the size, you hit 50 to 70 and you start seeing the weak points of AI right there. And that's where I think the
Right.
memory part could really come in handy. In the fact of if you start using memory with this, suddenly that becomes obsolete.
Okay. Um, all right. So, what is your, how do you envision? So, it seems like starting with like just what general models, like I want to get as close to ChatGPT as I can. Like, what's the closest model to ChatGPT at the 1 billion parameter,
Ooh.
level? We know it's not going to be, well, we know it's not going to
Yeah.
be close, but like it should be that one is closer than another,
And
right?
that's where you come with the use cases, because the
Right.
use cases help you define that. Because it's like if you're trying to write a novel on a 1B model, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
But there could be no reason why you can't do a Hallmark moment. I need to write something good for my wife's birthday card. It's like, hey, I'll be blunt. Every time somebody has a birthday thing on Facebook, I jump to ChatGTP. I give it some funny things to say, and it helps me look smart.
Right.
So, but that's what AI really can help us do. It can make you better. And so
Right.
those kind of things that, then follow instructions. ChatGTP is really good. If I give ChatGTP some instructions to follow to give me a response, I want it this way, do XYZ, it is really good at that, just like Claude. I'm not trying to just lean on one fence there.
Right.
Both of them are really superior at that. So test the model. I'm going to give you some prompts, not mathematical stuff or like that. I'm going to actually give you prompts and I expect certain results back. And how does it measure?
Right.
And those kind of things. And that's where it's like you can start seeing models, their weak points at 1B level, how they improve to 8B.
Right.
And then when you start to getting up into the 30s, it's like you see models really come alive nowadays, and the personality of that model shines through.
Yep. Okay. So basically it seems like a good idea to start with, what's the best general model at each of these size levels
Yep.
that you can run locally, maybe up to a 30B.
Yep. Because I believe because at 30B you can run, I believe, on a quant 4 on a 24 gigabyte card, which is probably the top. No, I won't say the top of the consumer line, but that person had at least $1,000 of luxury money to spend, to get that card at the bare minimum.
Right.
So that's probably at the top end of where we need to approach. The people that can do two of those cards at a 70B and run that comfortably, eh, they're not Katie Carter to begin with. They're,
And they also kind of probably know how to test the different models for their use cases,
yep.
etc.
Yeah, they're sitting there on Ubuntu anyways. They know what they're doing and they're me. Where I
Yeah.
don't, granted, I appreciate anybody who talks about a model. I always, because that's how you learn. But we're dealing mostly with Katie, who needs to be looking at a 24 gigabyte VRAM or smaller type models.
Right. Okay. All right. So in terms of how we evaluate those, we have so far, we have will it run on my computer or not at
Yep.
15 to 20 tokens per second, especially if it's streaming. We have how deep can you go before it starts forgetting.
Yep.
We have creative writing, nonfiction writing, and research.
Hmm.
We have follow instructions, and we have
Yep.
personality.
Yep. Other little tests like I would do is I would probably grab an article and I would tell it different things. I want all the quotes from it. I want all the facts from it. Different prompts for each one, and that way to see its ability to go through a chunk of text and get exactly what I need.
Okay.
And those would be easy to evaluate, especially if we handpick articles that we know the answer to already, and that
Yep.
way we can use a larger model to verify, or even just something we can have code probably verify.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think that's like I think basically it's like, using the big model to do it and then using the small model to do it and see,
yep,
and we're basically just going to need to rely on the big model,
yep.
and not
Well,
have to go through every single fact
yep.
ourselves, right? Okay. Any other things that come to mind on what we'd want to evaluate it on for just general use cases?
Um, Off the top of my head, that's where I'm at because that's
What
where
about
most.
multimodal?
I don't play with those models a lot. I don't do a lot of images simply because I code all the time.
Yeah, and really that's a specific use case.
Yeah.
I think all of these things are important and will become more important over time,
Yep.
but really like my use case is still the majority text,
Yep.
right? And yeah.
I believe we're hit. If you'll be as high as 80% of the people using AI for text.
And I
Uh,
think basically like there's reports out there like the top 10 use cases for AI. We know therapy's
yep.
one, and also that's something that people would probably appreciate a local private model for.
Yep.
So we can go through maybe the top 5 use cases and evaluate on
In
that.
fact, that'd be perfect. Yeah, because I probably even I seen the list a few places, the top 50 use cases and like that. But yeah, if we start moving down that list and come up with case studies for number one, I believe, yeah, as you said, is therapy, and go through a test for therapy,
Yep.
you know, on the 8B model and say, hey, this is my problem. What are the responses you get back? You have another AI perhaps larger or the same size. It doesn't matter. Maybe we'll do both just to see where it comes up a response back. So they talk with each other. And then we look at the entire conversation or hand it to a much larger Claude or Chat GPT and go, hey, evaluate this as a therapeutic conversation. Did it
Right.
pass? Did it not pass? Good, bad, and different. Get the pros and cons, and we can start measuring what we like, what we don't like, and that feed that results to people. And that
Yeah,
way
and
we're
maybe
not.
we can use like the AI as a judge for like to like narrow the universe down
Yeah,
and then do some like real-time YouTube videos of like going through and giving live reactions and stuff like that on like the top contenders basically.
and this way we stay out of anybody giving personal information, even by accident, and we keep it as uh, candy coated as possible
Yeah,
type thing. It's like, but at the same time, we test the model to see what it's really doing.
right. Okay, and then what would you envision the manifestation of this being? Like how are people using, is this a tool? Is it a website? Is it a directory?
Ooh.
Like what is it?
I can definitely see a directory starting to take place, where you could go in and you could, I want to see 8B models, and then I want to see 8B models that are good for therapy, that kind
Right.
of thing. And then it'll populate a list of here are the three models that have been tested. It'll show you the dates they were tested, the architecture behind the model. It may not matter to most and like that, but those are pretty key for anybody if you know models are important. And then, of course, the test results and the actual data behind that test result. So somebody could go back and see like the conversations that took place and what the evaluation of the larger model thought of those conversations. Because if you were interested in using one for therapy, you'd probably want more than just the cover of the book. You'd want to see the almost if you're going to see a real therapist, you want to see credentials. You want to see, hey, my friend visited this therapist and they got really good results. Well, this will give you your ability to take a look at that without having to download it or anything of that. You just get a glimpse at it you know, and then you have user feedback. Why not have a thumbs up? This model was great. This model was bad. Here's why. We could learn a lot about our own testing process through the feedback as well.
Right. And also comments section where people can leave a comment about the model and that
Yep.
type of stuff within the directory. And also perhaps pulling in comments from around the web and
Yep.
linking out to conversations on Reddit and elsewhere about the models.
And then, of course, a BrainDrive plugin so that you can get that directory right in BrainDrive. You don't have to go anywhere else because if we're
Right.
going to go through that effort, you might as well just go ahead and skip the web part and just because then all you're doing is okay, I like this model. This is what I want to see, and if it's on BrainDrive, there's no reason you don't have download and install for me. I like that already.
Right.
Next
Okay,
thing you know,
cool.
it's on a llama, and you're having a nice day.
Nice. All right, great. That sounds like a really good starting point for me to get something together for next week. Anything else that comes to mind on that idea?
No, that is my brain dump of my thoughts all weekend.
Do you think that this is a good use of my time to start researching
Yeah,
and putting this together?
because that it especially Katie. Katie starts using BrainDrive, Katie's first question, as you see on local llama, what's the best model for X? I can tell you the number of people on entrepreneur forums where I roam around. It's like, what is a local model? Where do I get them at? You mentioned Hugging Face, and they're like, I've never heard of it. You
Right.
know, those kind of things. Where if you're me, it's like I live there. I know what
Right.
that place. It's second nature. So this would be that bridge between all of those spaces for Katie Carter. And that
Got it.
alone right there could be a successful venture for Katie Carter, because she doesn't need to think, or not really think, but she doesn't need to go anywhere else to learn a website that she may or may not know. She just
Thoughts
simply,
on how we could potentially monetize that without sacrificing our values?
ooh, ah, I didn't even process that one. I never do. I'm a coder.
Yeah.
I just code. Well, one, because you're going to have NVIDIA all into this. There, you have Meta. They're all into this, so who knows from their aspects of how they might approach this. But I wouldn't want them, of course, to taint the values of anything. I want this to be kind of free form. I
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean, I
think
think
on that one.
anytime you have a directory, you have the opportunity to have sponsored listings as
Yep.
long as they're labeled as such,
Hmm.
without sacrificing the quality of, any recommendation or anything like that. I think, as long as the evaluation process is uncorruptible,
Yep.
people can pay. Like, if you have a small model that we're probably not going to look at because we're only evaluating the most popular stuff, you
Yep.
can pay to have your smaller model evaluated,
Yep.
might be an idea. And then, also I think a hosted version of Brain Drive, which has all the different, like, there's, like you said, there's like a million different models.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we'll evaluate, let's say eventually we get up to where we have hundreds or maybe even 1,000 that we've
Hmm.
evaluated. Well, instead of having to like go into Olama and download your Brain Drive,
Yep.
go into Olama, pull the model, download it, you can run any of the 1,000 models that we have evaluated on this cloud version of Brain Drive. And maybe you pay for tokens or something
Yep.
like that for testing, or something along those lines, and we earn a margin on top of whatever our cost is for running those models.
Yeah, because I think there's a main, as you said, these directories. It's like they all, if you put on there, this is sponsored, whatever, something there to label it differently so everybody knows. That way they can get in front of people. If they're that passionate about their project, great, and we don't taint our results that we're kind of looking for. And that's why I say this system using plugins, because that way it's like our process will always be evolving and easy to apply. That way, it's like right now, benchmarks are almost in stone and everybody knows it and they're trained for it, they're fine tuned for it. And ours will be like, ah, we have a new coding task test, like that. Let's go ahead and hammer it. And if you were trained on the other ones, good luck on the new one, because now
Right.
we'll really see if you were that good.
Right. Cool. All right. That gives me a lot to start with. Anything else you want to talk about for this week?
What do we have? Models? Nope. I think I'm good. Yeah, I'm cruising on installer because that's this for me. That's this coming alive.
Amazing. All right. So we'll end the recording there for this week. Again, if you are enjoying this content, if you could like the video, comment, and subscribe, that helps
Yep.
us get more visibility out there. And we're live every Monday at 10 Eastern time on YouTube. We'll be going live. So feel free to join in, ask questions, participate, etc. We're hoping to make this a community effort. And
Yep.
we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.